Hello everybody. In today's video I want to talk about the biggest criticism that AI generated design renders get. They are supposedly not reproducible, or you cannot iterate and change very fine details, right? Because in KeyShot we can just adjust the camera, but with AI there's no camera. So it's not possible for us to create like very consistent output for our design with AI. So in this video I want to break a little bit with that criticism, show you ways of best workflows to combine the AI render realism with the control of traditional image render engines like KeyShot. So if you're curious, have a look and we'll see how far we can take it. Let's go. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I have a range of images rendered traditionally in KeyShot. So this is for a project for Emma, right? So it's mattresses, soft goods, really difficult to render convincingly because of the materials and the flexible nature of soft goods. It's really hard to also model. But what I basically did, I modeled in Rhino and then put things into KeyShot and applied very basic materials, right? So if we zoom in, we can see that I have applied some textures here that fade. We have some fabric going on. We have even a zipper and we have a pattern on the top surface, like a kilted design of the top surface of the mattress, right? But obviously this is a representation only. It's not highly realistic. It lacks a lot of detail and realism and looks very static. It is just blocks. There's no creases, nothing there. It doesn't look soft, comfortable, or anything like that. So that's the problem with the traditional thing. I mean, that's also just my lack of skill in being able to represent those things more convincingly, right? But also just in terms of speed, it might take a lot of time to get something super realistic, especially soft goods are difficult to do, right? So I have a bunch of these images rendered for different perspectives, different views, all based on the same materials. Here a top view, also like some details where I want to show, let's say, the material more clearly, the handle to carry the mattress, even like a pin for fixation. And this pattern is really low resolution, so that's also why it's super pixelated from close up. But I mean, you get the point, right? So I just boiled out or rendered several images that I find interesting and that work, but are not yet as detailed and convincing and realistic as I would want to. Also here, I mean, I do have applied a fabric texture, but it doesn't read like one. Obviously, what I did in this case, I went into Vizcom, my current favorite in terms of visualizing and working in design terms with images and output. And I placed these pre-rendered images that I just showed you, right? The low quality, low realism, very static designs. And I asked more or less to realistically render these images with premium materials. I also, in some instances, I specified certain perspectives it is supposed to keep, or give me new ultra quality micro shots, like macro photos, right? Based on different images that I provide as input. And with that, I really get some interesting output that is so much more realistic than I could ever render in KeyShot. Or maybe at one point I would be able to, but right now I'm not, certainly not, right? So we see this is much more realistic than this image. If we compare them side by side, I mean, it's pretty obvious to me which one sells the idea better. The quilting on the sides is much more convincing. It's much stronger. The materials come across really nicely. So all in all, I feel like this is a really good approach. And also, especially for the details, you really get to have some fabric material representation with with some inconsistencies. It's not just completely perfectly uniform, right? We have some mistakes here and there. The lighting works, still it's convincing. All in all, it's just more realistic here. I think this is a really good example. We see the soft creases that were generated by the AI because it understands that this is supposed to be a soft material. So I guess you do understand what I'm talking about. The combination of both worlds is really strong. So also here, if we compare these two images, look at it. Like how this fabric works, how this signage works. This is much more alive and brings the concept closer to a reality that everybody can understand equally, right? Sometimes it's not completely right still, but it's on us to curate. Here, for example, the letters protrude instead of going into the metal plate, and also the seams are not quite right. But I think this is a really strong shot that really works alongside the idea that I had intentionally and initially. You can even have really close-ups of the material, which, I mean, to that detail, I think that would be hard to render in KeyShot, right? With these deviations from the uniform, from the consistent, and yet the overall pattern is intact, so you do understand that it will work. So that's my first lesson. If you want to create renders that are realistic, but you already have a 3D model designed, a basic one, and apply basic materials, then just drop that one in and turn that into something real, convincing, realistic. And from there, you can still move on, right? And once you have a realistic image of your concept, you can still say, put it into context. I like this one a lot, where I place it into really cool and modern because it's more like a performance-driven metrics concept, right? Environment that suits a lot. And just creating this in KeyShot would take ages and ages and ages. But now we come back to the criticism, right? So, all right, you have this beautiful shot and it looks well and nice, but maybe I want to change the perspective of it. Or maybe I want to show a zoomed in image of a part of the mattress that is placed in the same environment. So that's where Vizcom can still help us out. Obviously, it's not like just as easy as it would be in KeyShot, but I think the time that it takes to build such a scene is probably more than trying out different prompts to get to the result that is working for you, right? So I took these examples, right? So I have this image and I've said like, okay, what if my client says, I want to see a little bit more from the top, change the camera view, right? But retain all the details of the render that I would otherwise get. So the first thing that I did with this one, here we see the results. So I think some failed completely, right? Also, this is like a folds back. But this, I think, is a really successful example that we can take to move on with that really sets state here. So now I want to have this image, but from that perspective. So what are my options here? So at first, I just tried to say, okay, maybe I can just take this image and use the exact same prompt and see what the output will be. And that's on the top row. So what it didn't make it realistic, but the difference between this image and this image is too big for us to be saying that, all right, this is the same concept, right? The colors, but also just here, the details, the framing, it's just not working. So what I tried to do instead is say, render this image, our desired image, in the style of this second reference image that we already created with AI, right? So it has a clear reference of how the materials are supposed to look. The problem that I see here is, or that I experience is, that it doesn't really understand which perspective to keep. It just says like, okay, in the style of image 2, so that means you want me to show basically image 2, and then I just get like a copy of image 2 instead of an actual improvement of the first image that I'm asking about, right? So then another approach of mine was then to say, show the mattress of image 1, so that is the pre-rendered AI version, in the exact perspective of image 2, which is my KeyShot render output. So now I ask it basically to place something that exists already, but show it in a different way. And here I felt like this is a little bit more successful, but still it kept quite a lot to my initial perspective. So this is very much the first one, this is very much the first perspective, and this one too. But I feel like this one and that one are more similar already, even though this part is much thicker, right? So I think my best shot is this one here. So it took the perspective into account. It looks realistic to me. It considered the improvements. The top surface is much more visible now, while yet clearly being still the same idea and the same concept. Even the creasing is pretty much similar to what it was in the original. And now I think this is basically what we are trying to achieve. So, all right, it took me 5 times the charm before I got to my result, but 5 times clicking this button is still faster than basically setting up all these materials to actually convince. Obviously, I'm not saying that this is always the better solution, right? Sometimes it pays off to invest the time to have all the control. It's really project dependent and also goal dependent. What do you want to achieve? Do you have to animate this in the future? So then I don't think it makes a lot of sense to use AI in the first place if you have to animate within KeyShot, for example, because then the animation cannot look much worse than the still images, right? I mean, that may be also something for me to explore. Render an animation in KeyShot first, and then try to recreate it in Vizcom, but with higher realism. Maybe that also works, but I think this is a lot of work because frame by frame, or at least scene to scene, this would probably invite AI to implement a little bit more random, ridiculous stuff. But overall, I felt like this was, I don't know, half an hour, maybe less time, and I got the result that I wanted. So I was able to depict the mattress from a different camera point of view without changing much of the rest. And now let's say the problem is that we have this scene created, but what we want to do is actually depicting this detail, but within the scene here, right? So that's the next task that you would potentially do within KeyShot. You just zoom in on the detail now once you set up the scene. So once it's set up, it's super easy, but you have to set it up first. So then I tried different prompts to begin with, right? So first I said, place the mattress of image 1 in the context and scene of image 2, but keep the exact perspective of image 1. And what it does, it's just basically showing me image 2 again. So I had that struggle for a long time. I tried different things. It either shows me the one or the other, but it rarely combines them productively. So that was my second iteration. The third one is going back to the original. The fourth one going back to the original. The fifth one going back to the original. And this one's actually getting closer to what I wanted, right? Still not really the exact right perspective, but at least getting closer to what I wanted. Then another iteration, still failure. And then I finally felt like I have a prompt that does give me the result that I'm looking for, and that was this prompt. Create a zoom-in version of image 2 that show the exact part of the mattress as shown in image 1, but is still in the modern and cool bedroom environment. So this was the first one. I think it's clear to see that it tried its best, but here we actually, let me also bring that one down, get to see the mattress from a perspective that resembles much more closely this one than the first one. I think this one could have turned out nice, but it fucked up in other ways. But with a little bit of work, even those things I think are possible, and it will just become easier over time, right? So if Vizcom and other AI generators understand or identify the need to replicate exact details of an environment without changing it. So what you can do in Vizcom is create a new view, right? You just go modify new view, and that's what I did here. And then there's define view and there's free view. And with the free view, you can just basically scroll through an image and it will offer you different perspectives of the same scene and the same object within it. And then on the right, you can say, should it look from the bottom, from the center, or from the top, right? If we go from the center, then we have a different set of images that are like turntable things. And if you go from the top, you get some completely different images. And maybe there's one image is there that you feel like, wow, okay, this is either the result that I'm looking for, or it is close to the result I'm looking for, and I take it to iterate further on it, right? And now let me try what I haven't tried before. I want to remove the bed from this image, so I have basically just the environment without the mattress and the bed in there. So this is the one without the mattress, without the bed. And this is the one without the mattress. And now let's see if that works. So maybe it's better to have an empty scene and then just adding the different perspectives as we go. And we can also ask to improve our prompt with the mattress seamlessly integrated into the bedroom scene, maintaining the proportions and lighting of the original. Yes. So let's try that one too. So I haven't cracked the code yet how to say clearly, communicate clearly which is supposed to be the final output image, right? Okay, what if we have more images with the same context, which would be, for example, this guy, or let's do from the bottom. And now we have more references. So can we use that to our advantage? Show me image 2, but placed in the context of images 1, 3, and 4. Because now it cannot just take, or it can, it probably will, but maybe it understands that it's about the room, the setting, and not the exact positioning. Woo! Did we actually achieve it? Look at us. This is something I can live with. I can just fix it in a second step. But it finally showed us the actual mattress and the view that we are looking for, right? So this is much more close to the previous iterations. So it did help to say detailed view of the images in context already and use this one only as a reference. I mean, it's obvious, right? We're not there yet. We cannot completely, perfectly make the changes that we might want. But I think for most cases, what we can already do is sufficient, and only for the very heavy context loading rendered images, it becomes more of an issue because they take time to set up in KeyShot. But if I don't have any environment and just the object by itself, I can just use a really nice, the control that I have within KeyShot to show my product from the exact perspective and size that I want to, and just let AI do the realism. Just add a layer of realism still, right? Okay, I hope this video helped you to understand what you can do and how you can combine your existing skills of rendering within KeyShot and the control with the added benefit of the realism that the AI generation provides within Vizcom or other AI generation software, right? Hope this helps. Looking forward to see a lot of realistic and nice designed concepts from your side. I hope you liked it. If you did, follow and like. See you around. Bye-bye.